Went into Source Code with some kind of apprehension. This is the new film by Duncan Jones, who his debut feature, Moon, was one of my favourite films of, was it 2009, I believe that came out. That was an absolutely fantastic sci-fi film, and Source Code is his latest. It's his sophomore effort. Upon seeing the trailer, I wasn't too impressed with what I saw in the trailer, and was a little bit nervous as to how this film could turn out. Now, I have to say right off the bat that Source Code is one of my favourite films of the year so far, and I'm sure that it will remain in my top 10 of 2011 by the end of the year. Now, the plot basically follows Jake Gyllenhaal's character called Colter Stevens, who is a Marine given the ability to inhabit the body of somebody who died in a terrorist attack on a train for the last 8 minutes of their life. And in this 8 minutes, he has to try and find out who the bomber is in order to prevent a further attack from taking place. Now, it's kind of, it works out like Groundhog Day. We go through this same setup over and over and over again with Jake Gyllenhaal trying to figure out who the villain is. And that's the basic outline of the movie. To divulge any more information than that regarding the specifics of the plot would undo what Duncan Jones has built, if you will. Right off the bat, now this isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but right off the bat you have an incredible opening sequence where we have Jake Gyllenhaal on this train talking to Michelle Monaghan's character, only for the train to blow up during their conversation. And it really does, even though you've seen it in the trailer, it does take you by surprise, and that's another testament to kind of Duncan Jones's direction. He manages to make you forget that you know where it's going and still manages to take you by surprise. So I was impressed with that aspect of the movie. The film itself, I honestly thought that the novelty would wear off after a while. I thought if I have to watch Jake Gyllenhaal go through the same scenario, you know, a dozen times throughout the course of the film, it'll get old soon. And it didn't. It's every time Jake Gyllenhaal goes through this scenario, goes through those last 8 minutes on the train before it blows up, he uncovers a little bit more information regarding who the killer could be. And this kind of leads me to my kind of first... It's not so much a problem with the film, because the way it's presented is that Jake Gyllenhaal's kind of... He's a grunt, if you will. He's not a general, he's kind of a grunt in the army. So clues that may be blatantly obvious to us aren't so obvious to him because he's a bit hot-headed and dives in, you know, head first without taking the time to stop and think about clues that he may be able to pick up or who the killer could be. So literally, I think on the second time around him going through this journey, I figured out who the killer was. I saw it with my friend Laura. I said to her, I bet such and such is the terrorist. And she said, hey, there's no way you can possibly know that now. And then, you know, a few red herrings later, it turns out that I was right. So I think that's quite interesting how Jones presents this, because it is fairly easy to figure out who the terrorist is, but I don't find Jake Gyllenhaal's character annoying in his inability to figure this out sooner than he does, because he is presented and he acts like a grunt who's in over his head. And if anything, that kind of adds to his character, that he is a fish out of water and doesn't really know what he's doing. And I find that makes his character all the more appealing and relatable in this situation, because he has been thrust into it. I mean, at the opening of the film, he doesn't know where he is or what he's doing. And I find it to add to the mystery of the overall picture. One of Duncan Jones's strengths, and this was apparent in his debut feature Moon as well, is that he manages to subvert cliches and subvert your expectations. Now, you have Vera Farmiga as a supporting character in this, playing the military operative who is talking to Jake Gyllenhaal over a monitor, basically telling him, you know, what to do while he's in what's called the source code. This is where the movie gets its name. The computer program that he uses to live out the last 8 minutes of the man's life is called the source code. So she's telling him what to do, what to look for every time he goes in for the 8 minutes. And you think that she could be quite sinister and she knows more than she's letting on, and, you know, is she going to turn out to be kind of a villainess sort of thing? And I thought, while I was watching it, that would be the obvious thing to do, but I don't think Duncan Jones will do it. And I have to say that a combination between his direction and Vera Farmiga's performance really do add a human element to her character, and it does feel organic to her character as well. has a heart, and you see the cracks in her kind of frosty exterior appear over the course of the film as she starts to feel sorry for Jake Gyllenhaal. And I really found their kind of, you can't really call it a relationship as such, but their interplay and the dynamic between the two of them, I found that to be one of the most fascinating aspects of the film. That, along with Jake Gyllenhaal's chemistry with Michelle Monaghan, who he meets while on the train. This is a woman who, she's already dead. We know from the beginning she's already dead. This train has already blown up and he's just getting to live the last 8 minutes of it. But the on-screen chemistry between the two of them is absolutely fantastic, and I have to say rivals the chemistry between the two leads in The Adjustment Bureau, Matt Damon and Emily Blunt. In terms of on-screen romances, if you can call this a romance, which I suppose over the course of the film it develops to be a romance, it's one of the most kind of appealing and one of the most authentic on-screen romances that I've seen recently. So I have to say that Source Code does boast this alongside the film that I reviewed earlier on YouTube, The Adjustment Bureau. Towards the end of Source Code, Duncan Jones does explore the themes of identity and what it is that makes us human, basically analyses the human condition, which is a theme that he explored in Moon as well, and he does it incredibly well in this film. It is a recurring theme in his work, or should I say 2 films in, it's becoming a recurring theme in his work, and it's absolutely fascinating how he presents it. Now, I heard before I saw this film people comparing Duncan Jones to Christopher Nolan, saying that he manages to take big budget action and spin an intelligent story out of it and make you care about the characters, do action in a way you've not seen before. And I thought, can that be the case? Can he really rival Christopher Nolan? After seeing Source Code, yes he can. He is one of the greatest kind of action directors who is up and coming at the moment. Now let's hope that he stays with this level of quality. Now the only films he's done so far have been kind of throwbacks to 70s and 80s science fiction, and I really want to see him do more of this because he's proven himself to be a master at it. And I have to say there is one standout moment, and as I say, you know the train's going to blow up, but there is one standout moment where it blows up in slow motion as Jake Gyllenhaal and Michelle Monaghan are facing each other, and the explosion, you know, engulfs them in slow motion, and it's so beautifully shot. The score is amazing. That's another thing as well. The score I found to be absolutely fantastic. It's by a guy, I believe his name is Chris Bacon. Now Laura, who I saw this with, thought that the score was really intrusive, overbearing and too loud, but I really dug it. It reminded me of kind of 50s disaster movies and really added a certain energy and momentum to the film. I thought the score was one that I actually remember after the film, and it's not often with an action film you leave remembering the score, but this score was an absolute standout for me. But yeah, like I said, Duncan Jones is certainly up there with Christopher Nolan in terms of a director who can make a big budget action film for an intelligent audience. He doesn't spoon feed the audience, he lets you discover the twists and turns of the film at your own pace, and it really does pay off when he starts to include themes of humanity and identity and all the rest of it. So it is a fantastic film. I do wholeheartedly recommend Source Code to any fans of Moon, to any fans of just good old-fashioned action sci-fi movies who like to be challenged when they watch a film. It is a very rewarding watch, and it is a film that you will benefit from seeing more than once when it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray, but I would suggest going to the cinema to see it. It's a very cinematic experience, and honestly we need to support films like this in a world where we are snowed down and just bombarded with remakes and reboots and sequels. Go and support an original science fiction film which is just brilliant, and I like I say, I wholeheartedly recommend Source Code. Please go and see it. If you've enjoyed this review, please subscribe to my channel, leave comments. You know, it's all good. You're all absolutely brilliant, everybody who watches these videos. Thanks very much.